listening to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachel Hersher.
We've been working on an amazing ebook series called Tech Reset for you and your family. These little podcast series that I've been doing have just been a sampler of what we've laid out. Tech Reset is full of practical information, conversation starters, worksheets, printables, science, and stats. If you'd like to get a copy of our little 7-book Tech Reset series for free as soon as we launch it, just be sure to subscribe. You can find a link at today'smama.com/podcast. Subscribers get hookups, and this is one of them. So get over there and subscribe.
You're listening to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachel Hersher. We'll be back right after this.
Ever worry that all your kids are doing with their friends is showing each other videos on YouTube or Snapchatting each other whilst they are literally sitting right next to each other? Ever wish you could manage your kids' devices wherever they went? Well, Circle Go makes that possible. Circle Go takes all those settings on your kids' devices that they have at home and extends them to 4G LTE and any other Wi-Fi networks they join. Filters and time limits apply anywhere and everywhere, even for apps like Snapchat, Instagram, and YouTube. How, you ask? Find out more at meetcircle.com.
And now back to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachel Hersher.
Welcome to part 3 of our 3-part Tech Reset series on Screentime. Of course, I'm going to tell you if you haven't listened to part 1 or part 2 that you need to turn around, go back, and start with number 1. My hope is that these episodes build on each other. So in part 1, we talked about having shared vision in our Screentime goals, being on the same page, and then also sharing our vision when it comes to privacy. In part 2, we gave our devices a job and worked to set an environment that encourages better habits. In part 3, we're going to dive a bit into developing emotional intelligence by asking why. That's rule number 3. Always ask why. We all need to be in the habit of asking why. Why am I picking up my phone right now? Why am I logging on to social media in the first place? Often we pick up our devices to escape something uncomfortable. Sometimes that's a situation like being in an elevator, waiting in line at the grocery store, awkward moments with friends. We've all done those things. Other times we reach for our devices to actually avoid an emotion that we might not want to feel. This is where the addictive process starts, when we start using our devices as coping mechanisms. Many of us don't even realize we're doing these things. So there is a YouTube video of a talk that Sinek did, and it's called Millennials in the Workplace. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, but I want to read this quote word for word because I think it helps give some background for what we're talking about. So he says, "We know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good. In a 2012 study, Harvard research scientists reported that talking about oneself through social media activates a pleasure sensation in the brain, usually associated with food, money, and sex. It's why we count the likes. It's why we go back 10 times to see if the interaction is growing, and if our Instagram is slowing, we wonder if we've done something wrong or if people just don't like us anymore. The trauma for young kids to be unfriended is too much to handle. We know when you get the attention, it feels good. You get a hit of dopamine, which feels good, and which is why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive." So like, we're telling our kids, hey kids, if this adolescence thing gets you down, here's what you need. We've put it all in their hands. So now we need to help them start asking why. Why are we reaching for our devices? Why are we reaching for social media? This can be a tough question for adults to answer, but it's more important than ever to help our kids develop emotional intelligence in order to increase their capacity to deal with these big emotions that come from living in a world constantly vying for their undivided attention and constantly providing an escape. So, the definition of emotional intelligence. Number 1, the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. And number 2, emotional intelligence is the key to both personal and professional success. It's a big deal. We've got to help our kids identify their emotions, their motives, and their actions. So what are some of the questions we should be asking ourselves and our kids? Here's some good examples. They're easy. Why am I picking up my phone right now? Am I mindlessly picking it up, or do I have a clear purpose? Do I need to zone out? Am I looking for a mental break? Am I bored? Am I lonely? Do I need something? Another question is, why am I still on my phone? Why did I pick it up in the first place? Sometimes we lose track, and we're not even using the device, the phone, the tablet for the reason that we intended when we first grabbed it. Here's some questions to ask related to our social media usage. Why do I want to post that picture or status update on social media? Is it because I need something, or that your child needs something that they're missing in that moment? Is it attention, validation, connection, information? So again, with social media, why do I feel this way? Why am I constantly refreshing for likes and comments? Why am I on this social platform? Do you really enjoy it? Instagram, for example, I've talked to a lot of people who, have you heard the term hate follow? They follow people that make them crazy, but they can't seem to just hit the unfollow button. It's like there's a FOMO, like a fear of missing out for what's going to happen next, but whatever it is that's showing up in their feed definitely is not making them happy. So why am I following this person? Why am I following people on topics that don't make me happy? Is it habit? Is there something more to that? So there's some example questions. You can come up with loads. I think the easiest thing to do is constantly ask yourself, why? Why am I doing this? And think about your answers. So if the answer for why did I log into Facebook, or why did I post that photo or that status update, is that you needed to connect with someone, that you were lonely, that you needed some social validation, that's okay. We can still use those tools to reach out and engage with people, but let's also realize and consciously follow up by reaching out to friends in real life. So yeah, let's plug into technology and connect, but then let's put it down and connect with people in real life. That should be the use case here, and especially for our kids. Realizing it's time to place a phone call, schedule a lunch, spend some in real life time, that's emotional intelligence. Identifying what you really need. And human interaction is always going to be better medicine than reaching for digital technologies. So if you've mindlessly picked up your device out of habit and you had no real purpose in picking it up, take a moment and realize that. The funniest thing is when I took Facebook off my phone, I had like this ghost reach with my fingers. Like I'd pick up my phone and I'd refresh and my hands didn't know where to go because it was like I was just going to refresh my Facebook again and it wasn't there. That took like a month to go away. Turns out we as adults are not great at this. We, again, need to be just as mindful as our kids are. So this was a pretty quick episode because it's pretty basic. All I need to ask you is why? All we need to ask our kids is why. We can ask why in just about everything that we do and take a minute, analyze our answer, figure out what we really need, and then take an appropriate action to move on. It's going to require emotional intelligence and maturity from us as parents and from our kids too. I'll leave you with this little quote from Albert Einstein. If I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on it, I would use the first 55 minutes determining the proper questions to ask. Albert Einstein. Why is a great question to ask. That's all for this 3-part mini-series. I promise to return you to interviews and guests far more brilliant than I. But in the meantime, I'd love your feedback, your questions, your technology tips. Email us at podcast@todaysmama.com. I would love to hear from you. One last friendly reminder. We've been working on an amazing ebook series called Tech Reset for you and your family. These last 3 episodes have just been a sampler of what we've laid out. Tech Reset is full of practical information, conversation starters, worksheets, printables, science, stats, everything you need. If you'd like to get a copy of our little 7-book Tech Reset series for free as soon as we launch it, just be sure to subscribe. You can find a link at todaysmama.com/podcast. Subscribers get hookups, and this is one of them. So get over there and subscribe.
You've been listening to the Today's Mama podcast with Rachel Hersher. To find out more, go to todaysmama.com. That's today's, MAMA.com. Today's Mama, connecting moms and families with the best of today.